In this video, I'll be replacing the plastic blower motor cover on a late model Porsche 944. With the 1985.5-year refresh, Porsche changed the design of the fresh air blower assembly on the 944 and added a plastic panel at the rear of the engine compartment that covers the blower motor housing. This blower motor cover, sometimes referred to as a rain tray or a water channel, is standard across all the later 944 models as well as the Porsche 968, and it acts to prevent excess water and road debris from collecting in and around the blower assembly. Because the plastic is so thin on the panel, the covers can become brittle and are pretty easily damaged over the years. Replacement covers can be found under part number 944, 572, 063, 0801C, and they cost around $200 a piece. When replacing this part, we'll find that the lower edge of the cover rests on the metal seam between the two body panels at the top of the firewall, and it's held in place by the rubber weather stripping that follows the same pathway. So all you need to do is pull back the weather stripping to release the lower edge of the cover. The top edge of the cover is secured to the metal panel at the base of the windshield by some foam adhesive that will need to be pulled off. There are also some large bushings and washers at each of the windshield wiper mounts that need to be removed to fully release the panel. To remove the windshield wiper arms, all we need to do is remove the plastic cap from the base of the arm, loosen and remove the 13mm mounting nut, and pull the wiper arm straight off the shaft. This will reveal a larger 22mm nut that secures the large washers in place over the top of the cover. With the 22mm nut removed, both the metal washer and the rubber bushing can be pulled from the mount so that we can break the cover free from the adhesive strip, and then the cover can be removed from the car. Now that the cover is out of the way, you can get a good look at the blower motor assembly and assess any needed cleaning efforts. Before we install the replacement cover, we'll first need to carefully remove the old foam adhesive from the metal panel. There are a number of options here, but I just used a small chisel to lift and scrape away most of the old material and clean it up with some isopropyl alcohol. Here's a look at the two covers side by side, and we can see some obvious differences between the two. This old one is one that I pulled from a 1987 parts car, and I did a little bit of refurbishment on it. It had some cracks in the plastic that I filled with epoxy, and then I coated it with a satin black. And it looks pretty good, but you can still see the cracks in some locations. And the plastic is really thin and brittle, so they don't hold up well over time. And some differences, this one is smooth across the top, whereas the new one features a channel to allow some flexibility in the plastic, presumably to prevent cracks. And on the right side of the original cover, there is a notch cut to account for the eccentric mount for the windshield, which the new one does not feature. And the reason is this part is actually for the Porsche 968. This is the 1993 version, and the original Porsche 944 part is no longer in production, so we have this one, which does fit all models. Again, just some minor differences, and we'll need to cut out a little notch here on the side to get it to fit. When we look at the underside of the new part, we can see that flexible channel that runs along the bottom, and it comes pre-installed with some foam adhesive across the top edge. And there are a few pieces of felt here in the center to account for some vibration as that rests against the blower motor housing. And it looks like a nice clean part. When we overlap the two parts and line up that bottom edge, there's a nice mirror fitment across the two parts. And as well on the driver's side, where there's the circular cutout for the windshield wiper mount. When we look at the passenger side or center windshield wiper mount, looks like we may need to trim just a little bit of material off that inside edge, so it's not quite lining up the same as the original part. But we'll see how that looks when we get it in place, and we'll go ahead and get the notch cut for the eccentric mount, line up the fitment, and see if we can get it installed. In order to cut the notch for the eccentric windshield mount, I aligned both the old and the new covers on their outside edges and traced the cutout pattern with a marker. Next, you can use some scissors or a razor knife to cut a notch in the plastic material, and I really tried to take my time here as to not damage the new part, changing the angle of approach as needed, and I was able to get a nice clean cutout. After checking the fitment of the new blower motor cover, I found the spacing between the two wiper cutouts to be well aligned and didn't need any further modification there. The overall panel was just a little tight on one side where the top edge was making contact with the windshield seal, so I trimmed some of the material off that edge to improve the fitment. Once everything looks good, you can go ahead and reinstall the cover in the reverse of removal. Make sure the two plastic support plates are in place at the base of the windshield. Peel the covering from the adhesive tape, and position the lower edge of the panel in place, locking it all down across the edge with the weather stripping. With the lower edge in place, apply some pressure to the top edge to secure the adhesive, and finally reinstall the rubber bushings at each of the wiper mounts, followed by the metal washers, the 22mm nuts, and tighten everything down. Finish off the repair by installing the wiper arms onto the spline shafts and positioning them appropriately before reinstalling the 13mm nuts and the plastic end caps. And now you'll have a nice clean blower motor cover that keeps excess water and debris from collecting around the blower assembly.